Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. In this video, we will start to talk about the Sifat that don't have opposites. And we'll talk about الصفير and التكرير. So Bismillah, let's go ahead. In terms of learning outcomes and what you should be able to get out from this video at the end of it is number one, you should be able to describe what Safir is and which letters it applies to. And the second learning objectives that you should be able to get out is you should be able to describe the concept of Takreer when it applies to Ra. And by the end of this video, you should be able to analyze some of the common mistakes with the letter Ra, specifically with regards to Takreer. So Bismillah, let's get into the details. In previous videos, we've been talking about the Sifat that have opposites. So a letter is either this or that. It's either mahmus or majhur. It's either shadid or bayni or rikhu. These Sifat, they have opposites. Now, this is the first video we'll be talking about Sifat that don't have opposites. This Sifat either applies to this letter or doesn't. There's no opposite to it. And the two Sifat we'll be talking about in this video, the first is الصفير and the second one is التكرير. Now the word Safir in Arabic, simply put, means whistling. So let's jump into an example and let's take Surah Al-Fatiha. If we read the ayah, اهدنا الصراط المستقيم. Now let's listen to the Sad and the Sin. There's a whistle that comes with the Sad and the Sin. Let's read that again and try that with me. اهدنا الصراط المستقيم. There's a whistle with the Sad and the Sin. Now, to the extent actually that if you were to read the ayah silently, or if you were to stand next to someone in prayer and he's reading it silently, you could just about hear the Safir. So let's try it silently and let's see if you can pick it up as well. If you say, I'm not sure if you heard that, but even silently, the Safir, you can just about still hear it. Now, when we say Safir means whistling, and if you think of the whistle, the referee's whistle, the concept of why the whistle happens, or why the sound of the whistle happens, is because the sound is going through a tight area, and it produces a sharp whistling sound. And that's pretty much the same as what it is when we talk about Safir with regards to the characteristics of letters. So Safir applies to three letters: the Sad, the Sin, and the Zay. So Safir then, in terms of characteristics of letters, is the sharp sound emitted with the Sin, the Sad, and the Zay, because the sound travels through or passes through a tight area, and that's between the upper incisors and the lower incisors. So the sound is passing through a tight area, and therefore you hear a whistling sound or a sharp sound. So let's look at the makhraj here of the Sad, the Sin, and the Zay. If you remember from before, the makhraj is from the tip of the tongue with the inside page of the lower incisors. And the sound here goes through or between the top and the bottom incisors, and there's a tight passage there, and that's what causes this Safir or this whistling with the Sin, the Sad, and the Zay. S, as, there's a whistle with the Sin, the Sad, and the Zay. Now let's move on to the second characteristic that doesn't have an opposite. And that characteristic is التكرير. And التكرير is relative to the Ra. Now if we go to the makhraj of Ra, and if you remember the makhraj of Ra, when we think of the tip of the tongue, so if this is my tongue and that's the tip of it, when it touches the makhraj, what happens with Ra is that the kind of these edges of the tip, they're touching, but then in the middle there's a little bit of a gap, and that allows the sound to go through there as well. So with Takreer, what happens, let's say ar. So because your tongue, or the edges of the tongue, or the edges of the tip of the tongue are touching, and there's a little bit of a gap in between, touching the makhraj, what happens is there's a slight vibration or trilling or slight vibration when you pronounce the Ra. And that's a natural distinctive feature of the Ra when it's pronounced, the Arabic Ra. There's a little bit of a vibration, a slight vibration, slight trilling when you pronounce the ra. So takreer is the light vibration or trilling of the tongue due to the tight articulation point with regards to ra. And as we said, takreer comes out naturally when the ra is pronounced correctly from the correct makhraj, in the correct manner. So we say ra, ri, ru. Once again, ra, ra. You hear the little vibration, ra, ri, ru. And when it is sakin, ar. So if we were to take the basmala, we'd say Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Ar-Rahman, Ar-Rahmanir Rahim. There's a light vibration, but not excessive. We don't say ar, we say Ar-Rahmanir Rahim. And we don't have the ra very, very far away. We don't say Ar-Rahmanir. No, that's incorrect. It's Ar-Rahmanir Rahim. Now, let's talk about some of the common mistakes. If we were to exaggerate takreer, if we were to exaggerate this takreer and this light vibration, if it's not light anymore, we would be saying arr, right? That kind of continuous vibration, that's exaggeration of takreer. That is incorrect. So we say ar. There's a light vibration of the ra, but it's not exaggerated. Arr. And on the other hand, if we didn't touch the makhraj correctly, so if the tip of the tongue doesn't actually touch the makhraj and it's kind of floating somewhere, right? The makhraj itself is incorrect. There is no takreer, there is no light vibration. That's the other kind of extreme end. So on one extreme end, there's the excessive takreer or excessive vibration, arr, which is incorrect. And in the other end, there's not having takreer, not having the makhraj or the tongue itself in the right position in the first place, and having it floating, arr, and that's not the Arabic ra, the correct Arabic ra. Now let's revisit those learning objectives. We said that by the end of the video, you should be able to describe what Safir is. And we described Safir as the whistle or the whistling sound with the sin, the sad, and the zay, because the sound passes through a tight passage. And the second learning objective, we said that by the end of the video, you should be able to describe what takreer is with regards to ra and apply it. And we said that takreer is the light vibration, the trilling of the ra because of the tight articulation point. And the third point, we said that you should be able to analyze some of the common mistakes with ra with regards to takreer. The first one is, if we exaggerate takreer, we're pronouncing more than one ra. We're pronouncing more than one ra, and that is incorrect. And the other end of the spectrum, if we're not touching right makhraj, that sound, there's no takreer, the makhraj is incorrect to start off with, and that's not the correct ra. We'll see you in the next video. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.